Well, this is our 15th Sunday apart, although now it's partly apart because we can meet at the church. And I've just been reading some novels, and I've been struck by some passages. These novels are from the 20s. The first is The Great Gatsby, which I finished the other day. And here's something from the first chapter. "Civilization is going to pieces," broke out Tom violently. "I've gotten to be a terrible pessimist about things. Have you read The Rise of the Colored Empires by this man Goddard?" "Why, no," I answered, rather surprised by his tone. "Well, it's a fine book, and everybody ought to read it. The idea is if we don't look out, the white race will be utterly submerged. It's all scientific stuff. It's been proved." "Tom's getting very profound," said Daisy, with an expression of unthoughtful sadness. "He reads deep books with long words in them. What was that word Well, these books are all scientific," insisted Tom, glancing at her impatiently. "This fellow has worked out the whole thing. It's up to us, who are the dominant race, to watch out, or these other races will have control of things." "We've got to beat them down," whispered Daisy, winking ferociously toward the fervent sun. "You ought to live in California," began Miss Baker, but Tom interrupted her by shifting heavily in his chair. "This idea is that we're all Nordics. I am, you are, and after an infinitesimal hesitation he included Daisy with a slight nod, and she winked again at me. "And we've produced all the things that go into making civilization. Oh, science and art and all that. Don't you see?" There was something pathetic in his concentration, as if his complacency, more acute than of old, was not enough for him anymore. So that's by F. Scott Fitzgerald, Great Gatsby from the 20s. And then this man, Ernest Hemingway, met F. Scott Fitzgerald after reading his book, and his first book was The Sun Also Rises. And there's a passage in there that touches on this issue. "I remember something about a prize fight. There was an enormous Vienna prize fight. They had a Negro in it. Remember?" "I remember him perfectly. Go on." "Well, he was a wonderful Negro. He looked like Tiger Flowers, only 4 times as big, and all of a sudden everybody started to throw things. Not me. The Negro just knocked the local boy down. He put up his glove. He wanted to make a speech. He was awful noble looking. He started to make a speech, and then the local white boy hit him. Then he knocked the white boy cold. Then everyone commenced to throw chairs. The Negro went home with us in our car. I couldn't get his clothes. He wore my coat. Remember the whole thing now. Big sporting event." "What happened?" "Well, I loaned him some clothes and went around with him to try to get his money. Claimed the Negro owed them more money on account of his wrecking the hall. Wonder who translated. Was it me? It probably wasn't you. You're right, it wasn't me at all. It was another fellow. I think we called him the local Harvard man. Remember him now. Studying music. How'd you come out?" "Not so good, Jake. Injustice everywhere. Promoter claimed that the Negro promised to get the local boy in the ring and let him stay. He claimed the Negro violated his contract. You can't knock down a Vienna boy in Vienna. "Mr. Gorton," said the Negro, "I didn't do nothing in there for 40 minutes but try to let him stay. That white boy must have ruptured himself swinging at me. I never did hit him." "Did you get any money?" "No money, Jake. All we could get was his clothes. Somebody took his watch, too. Splendid fellow. Big mistake for him to have come to Vienna. Not so good, Jake. Not so good." And so what I noticed here in these 2 novels from the 20s is the authors are trying to touch on this issue of racism and viewpoints that people had of not treating them with justice or treating them fairly. And of course, that was 100 years ago. That was a long time ago. But in reading these books, it just, and with everything that's going on right now, it just caused me to pause and reflect on that and encourage me again to listen to the stories of those who are talking about what it is like for them currently, and to listen. And it's a complicated issue. There's a lot going on, but this is something that has been with us in our history for a long time. People have written about it, and currently they're expressing themselves, and it just was, I just thought I'd share that I've been reading some things that touched on this 100 years ago that are still coming out today.